Hey everybody, we're going to get started in just a moment.
Look at you, like a rolling stone.
Jimi Hendrix singing Bob Dylan. How cool is that? What's next on this list?
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll just let it roll. All right, it's 2 o'clock. Turn this music down. And we are live. Welcome, everyone who's here. I don't have a way to see who you are. So if you want to send me a comment and identify yourself, I'd love to know who's here. And for those of you who this is your first time, I am Dr. Fred Blum, and we're here today to talk about stress and resilience. This is really one of my favorite topics. I talk about it in many different ways in my work with one-on-one clients and groups and leading highly sanely and in all different ways. And I think it's really important. Just to give you a little bit of a sort of background, what I mean by resilience. Everybody talks about stress management. I think we've all heard that term, and it's been around for a very long time. Frankly, I think the term and the idea of stress management is a big mistake because it puts you in the position of always having to manage something that you really can't control, right? I mean, let's be honest. Shit happens sometimes that is either completely unexpected or completely out of your control. So to try to manage stress is a losing game right from the start. So let me describe how I think of resilience, okay? I see resilience, and we're going to use a couple of definitions and ways of describing it. But the first way I want you to understand is that it's simply, it's an individual or a team or an organization's ability to deal with stress in a way that creates greater learning, greater growth, and effectiveness in the future. So let's break that down a little bit. First, the same description applies to both individuals, teams, even an entire organization, because obviously teams and organizations are made up of people. So the next thing is that notice that I'm not talking about, just as we pointed out, I'm not talking about resilience as a way to become more bulletproof or resistant to stress, which is kind of the traditional way that we were just talking about, And another problem with that way of thinking is the idea that we can somehow insulate ourselves from stress. See, even resilience is often thought of as the idea of just making yourself stronger, like tougher, so you could take more of a beating. But ultimately, no matter how tough you are, there's going to come that one shot that knocks you out, So the idea behind resilience that I'm going to share with you is not about becoming tougher, like hardening your shell, right? It's something else entirely, and we'll get to, okay? Another issue with this idea of building the shell is, and this is really central to my work, is that we're not meant to be separate from each other. We're meant to engage and interact and learn and grow from each other. But if we're constantly in this mode of defending ourselves, from stress, those walls that we put up to defend ourselves can be very difficult to sort of put up and take down, depending on the context of the situation. So what our nervous system ends up doing, just because it's looking always for the most energy efficient way to operate, is it just puts the walls up and leaves them up. So we end up, in essence, separating ourselves from others in the process. Now, think about this in your own life or your own business for a moment. Do you find yourself getting more tense, aggravated, upset, overwhelmed as the stresses of your day increase? Do you end up looking for ways to cope or blow off steam. And that could be anything from drugs and alcohol, or, taking it out on coworkers or subordinates or family members, or wasting time on social media. And we could go on and on and on with all kinds of ways that we try and cope with stress, because we don't really have tools to effectively resolve it in our lives, and tools to become more resilient in our lives. And that's what we're here to talk about today. And you know what? Even worse than that, some of you may know this already, but stress is generally considered to be the number one cause of doctor visits in the United States, which basically means, again, no surprise, but just to drive it home, that when we build up all this stress, and especially when we hold it, when we don't resolve it, so it's being held in our bodies, in our minds, it makes us sick. Not surprising, right? We get sick because our bodies aren't meant to hold stress for extended periods of time. It's meant to come in. Stress is meant to enter into our system, and we process and we learn from it, and out it comes. It's a constant flow of energy. Hello, Angela. So keep that in mind as we move forward, that the idea that for me is that stress is about growth and learning. It's not about avoiding or trying to repel it. I said resilience for me is about growth and learning. It's not about avoiding or trying to repel stress, but rather about growing our capacity to turn the experiences of our life, especially the difficult or stressful ones, into something useful. So over the course of the past 30 years or so, believe it or not, that I've been doing this kind of work, I've developed various models, tools, techniques, practices that help individuals, teams, organizations to become more resilient, as I've described it here. Okay? Said another way to understand resilience is that resilience means having an increased ability to sustain your energy under pressure, to cope with disruptive changes, and to adapt. Now, let me explain what I mean by sustaining your energy, okay? Ultimately, and this is a whole other topic that we'll have to save for another day, but by energy, I mean literally, the energy is a force for change in life, and there are many different types of change that you want to make. So on one level, energy is the type of energy that runs your body. On another, it's the type that makes a clear decision to take a particular action. On another level, energy might be spiritual, the kind that helps you connect to your higher power or to your true self or purpose in life. So when you're more resilient, what we're saying is you have the ability to sustain that energy under pressure. So when you're more resilient, you handle both internal, meaning the stuff you do to yourself, as well as the external stress better. You bounce back more quickly from setbacks. In essence, resilience means operating in both your personal and your professional world with increasing purpose, ease, and flow. So I hope that makes sense to you, because that's the kind of resilience of the individuals and in organizations that create much greater effectiveness, much better productivity and results in the world. So let me give you a very simple example of a technique that you can begin to use to develop resilience as a simple practice you can do throughout your day. And I call this technique stop, drop, and roll. So what that means is when you notice that you're feeling stressed, so prior to this technique, you've got to be self-aware enough to notice when you are stressed. And that's, again, almost an entirely separate topic, but I want to emphasize it here, that none of this stuff works when you're in denial or when you're just kind of shutting down and trying to get through your day. You've got to become self-aware. You've got to become honest with yourself about how you're doing. So stop, drop, and roll. First thing we're going to do is we're going to stop for a moment. Whatever you're doing, whatever you're involved in, you're going to stop for a moment, and you're just going to slow down. Okay? You just want to kind of give yourself a moment to check in. That's stop. Drop. Now I want you to drop into your body. Check in. What am I experiencing in this moment? Do I feel stressed? Do I feel anxious? Do I feel angry? Do I just feel tense? Is my breathing shallow and kind of, held deep inside my body? And then roll. I say roll because it's like you're rolling back towards yourself. Take a breath. Okay. What part of my body can I relax in this moment? Where can I bring a little bit more breath? How can I begin to understand the context of why I'm stressed a little bit more deeply? How can I have more compassion for myself or someone else? So the simple pause, stop, drop, and roll gives you an opportunity to handle stress in the moment rather than letting it build up and build up and build up until it becomes a problem. And then you end up in the doctor's office, like we said earlier. Part of what I teach, incidentally, is how to really understand what it means to breathe. Most people, they say, well, I already know how to breathe. Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. And what I can tell you after 45 years or so training in various martial arts is that most of us don't really understand what breathing is and the power that it has to actually begin to help us move energy and resolve tension in our bodies and our minds. So this process, stop, drop, and roll, you can repeat it a couple of times. And at the end, after you've done it a couple of times, you just check back in, what's remaining? What now? How am I feeling? What is this tension or stress that I'm feeling might be asking of me? You see, it's very difficult to ask that question in the beginning, but after you've begun to help this tension resolve a little bit, you can ask yourself, what might need to change right now that I wasn't seeing before? Do I have to have a conversation with someone? Do I need to make a change in myself? Whatever it may be. I'm not saying, incidentally, that the answer is always going to be obvious or simple. Sometimes the problems are more complex and they require a little bit more complex solutions, but it's good to check. Sometimes it's as simple as I just need to take a little bit of a deeper breath, So let's just keep in mind that sometimes the possibilities, the solutions are simpler than they look before we really check in. All right, now, I want to take this to another level. Because on one level, what we've been talking about so far, we can say that resilience is simply being able to handle stress in a constructive and creative way. And that's awesome, right? We all need effective tools for dealing with the mounting stresses in this crazier and crazier world in a way that allows us to grow and thrive rather than break down, right? Okay. So what I want to add, and this is, again, getting down to the core of how I work with individuals and companies. What I want to add is that your experience of stress in general, like whether it's work or family or health or the craziness in the world, that experience will change dramatically based on your level of identification with what I call your ego versus your true nature. Now, just in case you haven't been on my other lives, here's what I mean by that. Your ego is basically the part of yourself that you created when you were very little, basically out of fear and insecurity. I won't go into that in depth today. Again, whole other conversation, but that's what your ego is. It was a defense mechanism in essence that we create because we're born into a world that we don't understand, and we get a very early signal that something's not right, and we create this ego, this identity, just to fit in, okay? So when you're dealing with stress from the perspective of your ego, it's kind of inevitable. You're going to experience that stress out of fear and insecurity. There's just no way around that because that's what your ego ultimately is based in. Now, your true nature, or your true self, or your intrinsic self, is the real you, okay? This is who you really are, behind the ego, behind what we might call the false self. And the great news about that is that the natural qualities of your true self are already peace, tranquility, ease, freedom. See, there's nowhere to get to. One of the pillars of my work is that we're not trying to fix your ego. We're helping you to remember who you really are. And this is not some woo-woo kind of airy-fairy thing. This is a very practical way of learning that who you are already has everything that you need to lead a happy, fulfilled, successful life. So keep that in mind, right? So dealing with stress from the perspective of your true nature will obviously tend to be, well, less stressful than it is from the perspective of your ego. Okay, make sense? So let's do a little experiment, and I'm going to ask you guys. This can be a very powerful experiment and experience if you really give yourself a moment to do it, and it'll only take probably 2 or 3 minutes at most. So if you can, if you're not driving your car or something, please kind of settle in. You can close your eyes if you like, and just try and minimize distractions for the next few minutes. And we're going to do this experiment. I call this active love. And I got this somewhere. I don't remember where I originally got it from. I want you to start by thinking of a minor to medium experience that stresses you out a little bit. It might be something that you experience frequently. It might be something that is currently going on for you. Okay. Don't make it too big for this experiment, or you might not get the result we're shooting for here. Have it be something relatively simple that you can kind of work through, hopefully, in the course of this little exercise. All right? I'm going to give you a minute just to kind of check in and figure out what that is for you. Okay, good. That's not a minute, but I'm impatient. Imagine that you are surrounded by, you can use any visualization you want here, but imagine a warm, liquid light that is infinitely loving. Think of it any way you want, but you're surrounded by the very energy of love. And I want you to feel your heart expand far beyond you to become one with this love. So it's like your heart, or the energy of your heart, expands beyond the confines of your body, and it merges with this sense of infinite love. Now I want you to allow your heart to come back into its normal size. And as you do, you bring this infinite love energy in with you and concentrate it inside your chest. So do that a few times. You could even do it with your breath if you want. Imagine this energy of love surrounding you. Breathe in and expand yourself into that space of love. And as you exhale, allow it to collapse back and concentrate in your heart. Do that for just maybe 2 or 3 reps, 2 or 3 breaths. Already, you could feel the space become more peaceful, more still. Now I want you to think of the person or even the circumstance that's triggered this stress. Now, if the person is not physically in front of you, and usually they're not, that's fine. Just imagine their presence. If it's a circumstance, just imagine whatever comes to your mind to represent that circumstance. And I want you to take that love that you've begun to concentrate into your heart, and I want you to send it out towards that person, even if you don't think they deserve it. Send it to them anyway. Even if the circumstance seems unfair or wrong in some way, I'm going to invite you to send that love from your chest, just like you're expelling a breath. Send all that love to them. Hold nothing back. I want you to follow that love, follow that energy as it leaves your chest. Watch as it enters the other person or situation. Be part of it. Feel yourself connecting to that person or situation. And what this will do is it will help break down that sense of separation, that sense that you're separate from other people, that sense that you're separate from your experiences in life. And now relax again. And again, you're going to feel yourself surrounded by this sense of infinite love. You'll feel more filled up with it, more at peace. And I just want you now, in this, 2 minutes or something, I want you to think again about that stressful situation and just notice, does it feel the same for you? Feel free if you'd like to comment on what may have changed for you. But just notice that probably something is different about the way you experience that stressful situation. And if that's not true, my first guess would be that you probably picked something a little too big. So in other words, the best way that I have found to create real, sustainable resilience is to literally change the you that's experiencing the stress. And the more you allow yourself to live from your true self, the more natural you'll find yourself handling stress in a more peaceful, balanced, and integrated way. Angela says she's more relaxed. Good. That makes sense. Glad to hear it. And as you learn to handle that stress in a more peaceful, relaxed, balanced way, you'll notice that you're now dealing with stress in a way that actually creates more peace, more learning, more opportunity for growth, rather than tapping your reserves and breaking you down, right? Is this making sense to you guys? This is an opportunity to be the person, just by who you're being, that it naturally entices other people to want to partner and be around you. Because there's something about you that helps you, that they can see, they sense that you're just someone that they feel better being around, that they trust you more, that you're just somebody that they want in their world. Angela says there's something to love your enemies. Well, there you go. Couldn't have said that better. Thank you. So I think that's all I'm going to share today. I want to thank you guys for joining me. Look, if you find these kind of discussions interesting or valuable, I would love to stay connected with you. I do these lives every week, do them on Facebook. They simulcast to Facebook, YouTube, and we just added LinkedIn Live. So if anybody's watching on LinkedIn Live, give me a shout out. Let me know that you're on there. And and maybe put it in your calendar, right? Every Wednesday at 2:00 for about 20 to 30 minutes. We're going to be doing these. I'm going to try and make these as valuable, as content rich as possible. I'm going to really do my best to not give like the same kind of story that everyone else has given you. You know, I'm going to try and give something a little more unique in the perspectives on these different ideas. And if you'd like to take it even deeper, let me know in the comments. Just say, I'm ready in the comments, and I'll send you a copy of the same guide that I share with my high-performing clients, including executives and famous pro athletes whose names you probably know. This is the same kind of thing that I share with them, and I've created a simple guide to help remind us of the basics of how to stay in that place of peace and tranquility. So give me, just say I'm ready in the comments, you know, whether you're watching this live or watching the replay, and I'll contact you and I'll get that guide out to you as quickly as I can. And I think that's it for me. I appreciate you guys being here. I love sharing this stuff with you. I try and keep these brief lives as short as I can because I know you're busy and you got stuff to do. But I'm glad that you're here, and I hope I get to see some of you again the same time next week. All right? Thanks again. Peace.